another discussion in health discourse with Sakshi and Sushant. So hi Sushant, good morning. So today we will be discussing about metabolic disorders. As we see around, there are a lot of people talking about that carbs, one should not eat carbs in case you have diabetes. You should have a low carb diet. And then some people are prescribing protein supplements. Some people are prescribing keto friendly diets. So Sushant, I think we would really like to understand what the science says in all these metabolic disorders. It should not be either your opinion or mine opinion or ours opinion or someone else's opinion based on a belief system, but let us decode the scientific means and methods which will help us understand the whole mechanism behind it. That is actually look, the carbs, are they actually bad for an individual? Because throughout the our talks we have been discussing a lot of things about how an individual's biology biochemistry is unique, right? And how gene fitletics is helping them decode it through the science of microbiome, right? Now please shed some light on the scientific facts, what exactly the science research says.
Yeah, so let us start with something very important because we are hearing a lot of jargons. I think we discussed this yesterday also that we're using a lot of jargons just to lure patients and customers, right, who are already in pain, right? So a lot of these jargons are either prefix AI or tech or suffix technology, right? And again, we know technology have seen over last handful of years have played a role in various industries, in automating, in bringing more information which was not available earlier, in speeding up the process, in efficiency, a lot of these things. In healthcare, it has a very vital role to play, right? Because technology has helped doctors, healthcare practitioners, even the patients to get more relevant insights which was not available earlier. So we have done a lot of work in terms of moving from analog to digital, right? So a lot of information was not available. So we have these wearable technologies. We have these, genomics, DNA, human DNA testing, number of these things, right? Where we are companies propagating that we could assess your risk, or probably we could see your uh, blood sugar response to various foods, right? So that is these are our intermediary steps in terms of our metabolic health, right? And again, metabolic health is all linked to your cellular health, right? So when it comes to metabolic diseases, it is your cells have become dysfunctional, right? For instance, when we discuss about cancer, also that cancer is also a metabolic disease, right? So the mutation in terms of the cancer is an outcome of the mitochondrial dysfunction, right? Similar is the case what we are referring to type 2 diabetes, right? So if you are saying carbohydrates, right? So obviously we all know there are three macronutrients, carbohydrate, fats, and proteins, right? So all three are essential part of our nutrition. Our body is nothing but a moving talking system of the nutritional ingredients. So we are made of nutritional ingredients, right? And difference between us and plants is that plants have more genes than we have, right? But in our body, we are driven by some other genes which are not ours, which are of microbes living inside our body, right? And they dictate a lot of our physiology, right? And the metabolic health and specifically the insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes is no different, right? So our cellular functions, our microbial functions, right? Our biochemistry drives our insulin response. So carbohydrates, again, if you see, so I would like to reiterate here that, we have to redefine how we look at food and nutrition, right? So when we talk of a carbohydrate like brown rice, for instance, right? So brown rice has carbohydrates, has sort of amino acids, has sort of dietary fiber, have certain vitamins and minerals and a lot of these things, right? So essentially, just giving you example that there are different, substrates in each food. So each food may be varying from 50 to 150 substrates, right? And when they enter our body, we know the food, our body doesn't know what brown rice or what dates is, right? Or what almonds is. They interact and communicate with each of these substrates, right?
Absolutely, because see, when you are chewing the food, right, it becomes molecules are released, right? When you're chewing the food, it becomes like
Yeah.
a, it's like a pulp
Yeah.
which is going inside the body. So the body does not know. I mean, obviously, when we are referring to the body, the inside microbes inside the body, they don't know you're having an almond or a date or whatever, right? For them,
Yes.
it's a chemical substrate that they are identifying when they are reacting with it. It's more of a, action reaction thing here.
So yeah, so when you eat something, so you have to see the chronology here, right? When you eat something as the first line of defense or the first round of interaction, what we have with the external environment, whether it is food, whether it's the environment we are living, whether it is stress, whether it is pollution, whatever it is, it's your mouth, right? The microbes in your mouth. Again, we all know there are more than 7 species in the mouth, right? And the mouth environment is much more dense while the gut is diverse, right? So these microbes pre-digest the food, right?
I would really urge you to please emphasize on the word density and diversity, because many people might get confused here that density and diversity, what
Okay.
exactly is the
So
difference here?
so in gut there are more than 1,000 species, right? And these species have different strains, right? And there's huge diversity. So each species would have different strains, various strains. There's much more diverse, and that's why a lot of uh, gut microbiome testing company would say, focus on diversity, right? Which is a starting point. So you need to have diverse microbes, right? But that doesn't mean that those microbes are doing good things. Depending upon how they're interacting with the external environment, they may be doing good things and bad things. And that's why we don't say as good and bad, we say as harmful activities and beneficial activities. Similarly, in mouth, the it is not as much diverse, but it is more dense, right? So it's more deep rooted in a tooth, right? In a enamel, right? In our roots and canals and everywhere, right? In our tongue, right? So essentially, a lot of these microbes, and again, gut and oral share more than 70-75% of the microbiome, right? So essentially, there are a lot of these microbes in the mouth which move to the gut, right? So I don't want to deviate. So that's a basic thing, in terms of. So for instance, a bacteria called Fusobacterium nucleatum, which is on the bacteria. If you Google and search, it is one of the bacteria which is implicated in the onset and development of IBD and colon cancer, and it is an oral microbiome. It's not a gut microbe, right? So essentially, that's one of the reasons why you have microbes from the mouth moving to the gut, right, through saliva. So again, the microbes in the mouth pre-digest the food and make sure that the different components of foods are broken down and it's available easy for the absorption in the stomach and small intestine, right, and over the large intestine also the food which cannot be metabolized in the small intestine, right, and again it also releases biochemical signals to tell various body organs, what is coming their way, right? So that is the first level of interaction. That is the first level of biochemical activity that happens, right? When your food moves to your gut, because your biology is restricted, your own biology, your genes are hardly 1% total genetic ecosystem of your biology. So essentially, you are limited by metabolizing a lot of food. So you have a limited ability to metabolize a lot of these food substrates. A lot of these substrates would end up in the gut, right? After it is they are pre-digested by your microbes in the mouth. It is available for the absorption in the small intestine, and again small intestine, and then again it moves to the gut, right? Now here microbes would sense a particular substrate or molecule in a food, right, and express a particular gene, right? And again, that is again a gene is activated and it performs a certain biochemical function, right? So in simple words, they extract the energy for their own, well-being for their own survival, because they also need energy to survive, right? And in turn, they release certain waste products or byproducts or metabolites, what we call as secondary metabolites. In simple words, what we call is for layman understanding microbial poop, right? So these are the metabolites which are, uh, driving a lot of physiological functions and biological functions inside the body, right? And it is these metabolites which activates our immune system, which give us vitamins, minerals, nutrients, a lot of these things, right? So, and it is these metabolites that would cause inflammation, that may cause a spike of uh, blood glucose spike from a particular food, or rather from a particular ingredient in the food, right? So this is the basic biochemistry behind it, how the food substrate interact with our biology, our microbiome, right? And what kind of biochemical functions are being performed, what chemicals are being secreted, right? Uh, so I think that is very, very clear in terms of understanding of layman understanding of land,
Yes,
how.
yes, that's pretty clear, that how the biochemical functions are working.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the low carb dietary regimen that is usually,
Mm.
recommended by most of the people. Are carbs that bad? I mean,
Okay, so how I define carbs, or how we define a gene frequency about carb, is microbial accessible carbohydrates, MAC, right? Which generally means that those ingredients in the carbohydrates, right, which cannot be metabolized in your small intestine as a food for your microbiome, right? For instance, dietary fiber, inulin, antioxidants, right? Polyphenols, right? So these microbes metabolize them and release beneficial things such as bitrate, acetate, propionate, or secretion hormones like GLP-1 and PYY, right? And which regulates your uh, insulin response, which regulates your satiety, right? So essentially, carbohydrates uh, are required because these are one of the way of uh, giving fuels to your mitochondria, right? So that they can generate ATP and they can give energy, release energy for our various daily activities, right? So, so again, that is something required. So carbohydrates is they are bad carbohydrates in terms of anything which is high in sugar, which is highly processed, ultra processed, right? Are really, really bad. But I don't think so that carbohydrates are one of the main reasons for onset and progression of type 2 diabetes, right? Because you need to have carbohydrates to fuel your biology. You need to have carbohydrate which is rich in fiber, dietary fiber, which is rich in inulin, which is rich in pectin, which is rich in you know uh, polyphenols, right? These things are really important. For example, even you take off wheat, whole wheat flour, right? It has a lot of vitamins and minerals and even amino acids, right? So
there are
so
there are a lot of
yeah, yeah.
there are a lot of nutrients in whole wheat flour, and
So
I
you're
am
done.
actually wondering. So
Hmm.
people who are promoting gluten-free products, they are actually, and those who are actually consuming it, then
Hmm.
maybe they are depriving their body of the essential
So these
nutrients.
these are the basic questions. When you are saying, okay, I am not going to eat wheat because it is going to trigger inflammation, probably, or it is assumption that it is going to make me fat, right? Or it is going to spike my insulin, right? So thing is, it has a lot of other ingredients which you are depriving your body of, and you will end up with certain symptoms, right? Maybe back pain, maybe sleep issues, maybe digestive issues, maybe some sort of, you know, cognitive issues,
Cognitive
right?
issues, because you
Right?
see what happens is that in India, if you talk about the first, the usually the north and the west plains, it's a
Hmm.
wheat and millets dominated area, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now we are seeing people are complaining about gluten intolerance, and which is actually not about intolerance, but it is about their intestinal permeability being
It is it
compromised.
is it is a biochemistry problem,
It
right?
is a biochemistry problem which can be fixed. It is not that this is permanent, or if you're lactose intolerant, then it is permanent in
So actually,
nature.
there are two things here. I don't want to deviate from the discussion, but from a wheat
Hmm.
perspective, right? One
Hmm.
is that right now the how the wheat is being produced because of urbanization, globalization, is we need at least 25 times of what we needed earlier, right?
Okay.
So the crop cycle is being changed. We are producing more than 8 times in a year. And to do that, we are putting pesticides and herbicides and a lot of these harmful chemicals, which is getting to wheat, and we are spraying all these things, and it is causing intestinal permeability, right? That is one. Other is obviously you have a lot of nutrients. Probably you have a biochemistry problem because of some other inflammatory functions going on, because maybe you're taking a lot of sugar, or maybe you're taking certain food which is not compatible with your biology, right? So
And
it may
another
lead.
thing that most of the microbiome companies misses the plant-based viruses, because that is what
Yeah,
we tell them. And the plant-based viruses are something that could cause inflammation in most of the individuals. We have seen that, right? I
yeah.
mean, a very
Even
common
fruit viruses,
fruit
even
viruses and viruses from the vegetables. By basically, these viruses are also causing an inflammation, which is being regarded as a food intolerance problem,
yeah.
right?
So coming
So
back to our discussion on the carbohydrate front, right?
yes,
So it is wrong to say that carbohydrates are bad, right? Yeah, so some carbohydrates based on your biochemistry, individual biochemistry, based on your inflammatory r- activities, based on the metabolic by your microbiome, right, would warrant and spike in sugar, right? And again, it is based on certain specific food substrate in those carbs. And again, I'm now coming to basic thing. Even if it is spiking, right? Spiking means it is staying in the blood sugar level, right? For more than usual, right? The problem here is that if your if your biochemistry and cellular function are doing on well, right, it is going to regulate your insulin response. And I'll tell you why and how. So when your oral microbes metabolizes even carbohydrates, pre-digest carbohydrates, they send a signal to pancreas, oh, I've consumed something sweet, please start releasing insulin, right? So now understand, very simple, I'll keep it very simple. So on every cell, there are insulin receptors, right? So the pancreas is insulin binds to insulin receptors, right? So there are insulin receptors on your fat cells, liver cells, muscles, most of the cells, right? And then this triggers our intercellular cascades, intercellular signaling, right? Activates an enzyme called AMP kinase, right? So this is a sort of biochemical function which happens, right? Now AMP kinase would communicate with another enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase. We all have discussed about endothelial cells and how ENOS is lining is coupled with endothelial cell, right? And tells ENOS to release GLUT4. Now, GLUT4 is a protein which travels to the cell membrane, binds to glucose, clears from the circulation, and transports inside of cell for either storage or energy, right? And to activate GLUT4, we need a signal that is nitric oxide. So when your body is producing enough nitric oxide, right, when your cellular functions are doing on well, right, so your glucose are clear of the circulation, and probably even if because of inflammatory aspect there are certain spike, it would clear it, or or probably the situation of insulin resistance happens in terms of high spike is when you know that, or you do not know that certain substrates in the food are causing inflammation, which is causing spike for you, right? And there are different factors. So let me show you something here. Okay, so this this is our platform, right? And we do predict the onset of diabetes right here. So this is coming from our full body solution where we see all the pathways. So these are the pathways which tells the spike, right? Which causes the inflammation, which causes the spike for every individual. This is different. So again, we have these 26 pathways where we look at. We look at fructose and glucose metabolism. We look at glutamine. We look at GLP-1. Look at enzyme propionate and LPS and a lot of these factors, right? So so ideally, yeah. So ideally, we look at these factors, and again, we look at this inflammatory level, there's high level of spike, and there is secretion of insulin by your pancreas, right? Pancreas will start releasing insulin, and then again, if we do not stop consuming such foods, we have this inflammation goes up, and then we have a situation of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. That is one of the factors. But again, the primary rate limiting factor is the production of nitric oxide, right? So again, if your body is not producing nitric oxide, GLUT4 is not activated, it cannot clear the glucose of the circulation. Your insulin senses it, your pancreas senses it and start releasing insulin, right? And again, what happens is next is a series of release of insulin inside the body, which cause hyperinsulinemia, hyperglycemia, and type 2 diabetes, right? But coming to basic, so what is the biochemistry behind nitric oxide production? I think we have done this webinar, but I'll go very, 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 very briefly and tell you. So our cells, coming on to cellular health, and it is important, nobody talks about this, right? So our cells are needs fat, fatty acids, cholesterol for performing various cellular functions. It is these fats, fatty acids, good fats, healthy fats, which maintain the cell structure and fluidity, which maintains the cell membrane, which is inside of cell, right? It's like a jelly sort of thing, and it's inside the cell, right? So it maintains the cell structure and fluidity. So when you're taking bad fats, omega-6, polyunsaturated fats, seeds oil, vegetables oil, or you're not consuming a lot of healthy fats such as ghee, butter, monounsaturated fat, olive oils, right? Coconut oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, right? So you are actually changing your structure and fluidity of your cell membrane, right? And again, of your cell in your cell membrane, and again, this disrupts the intercellular signaling. Your cell cannot sense what is the outside of cell and whether they have to produce nitric oxide or not, whether they have to activate metabolic biogenesis or not, right? So your body cannot, if you do not eat right fat, your cell membrane breaks, your cell breaks, right? There's insulin receptors are not expressed properly, so you do not respond to insulin, and then the pancreas start using more, and then there's no nitric oxide, there's no GLUT4 activation, right? So there's high level of sugar spikes, right? So you have to first look at the each of the substrate in a particular food, how it is impacting your inflammation or your sugar, which is causing sugar spike. And again, this is not static. It will change every 3-6 months, right? So not static that if suppose wheat is spiking your blood sugar level, right? Because of some substrate, maybe some glucose, because you have certain microbes who are converting glucose into inflammatory things, which is causing inflammation, right? So the thing may change after 3 months. So wheat may not spike after 3 months based on your entire ecosystem and what other foods you're feeding, what is your sleeping patterns, what are your stress level, what other ingredients you are ingesting, right? What toxins you are exposed to, right? So that is one aspect of it, right? Where you need to look at each and every inflammatory level to identify your insulin response to food substrates, right? First thing, right? Which is again, if you do not recognize, or probably you are recognizing bad wrongly, right? It is going to lead to insulin spike. It is going to make pancreas release more insulin, and you would have situation of insulin resistance. Second thing, more important, is the activation of GLUT4 through nitric oxide, and again, your cellular functions. So you need to have good fats. You need to eat good fats in your diet. So if you're not eating good fats, you may be having insulin resistance and you may be blaming wheat for it or rice for it, but actually the reason is not that. Reason is maybe good. So type 2 diabetes is something, an outcome of your cellular dysregulation or disruption in your cellular functions, which is again because you're changing the cell structure. You're making your protein dysfunction, you're making enzyme dysfunctional, right? So need to understand the biochemistry behind it. Just by saying, okay, your carbohydrates spike your sugar, and then take my supplement is going to suppress your sugar level is all crappy shit, right?
That's true, actually, because there has been a lot of misconception around all these things, and it is impacting people's health to an extent that people are going towards cancer. Then there is a progression of cardiovascular diseases among diabetic patients, and then chronic kidney diseases, because some of the such advices they turn out to be lethal for some people, because who are at a very adverse stage. So I think with this we have come to the end of this discussion. Would you like to add some points here?
Yeah, so first of all, do not fall for the supplements. No. Understand your biochemistry. Uh, take care of your cellular health. Have good fats in your diet. So people who are saying fats will make you fat, nonsense. Nonsensical things.
But perhaps they should just research the scientific evidence behind what
No,
these people are saying, or maybe they can just question
on a humorous
these
note,
things.
your brain is made up of 80%. 80%, 80%
Fat,
brain is made up of fat. So
fats,
if
yes.
these people are not eating fats, right, probably their brain is not functioning, and that's why they are saying all these stupid things. So I'm
It will impact their hormonal levels, their cortisols, and their fight and flight responses as well, because then in
even
that case,
even resilience.
even resilience. So it is going to impact their memory as well, right?
Yeah.
And brain being a very sensitive, or being an insulin sensitive organ as well, and once these things begin to impact your health, it is totally, it does not work in a good condition in that case. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
So I
mm,
think what people need to do is they should probably put some of their time in while researching that what is the scientific evidence behind what anyone is quoting, because that has
mm.
to be there. It is the
Yeah,
time that
yeah.
we raise our awareness. We should
Mm,
start asking the right questions from whoever is giving you an advice or claiming anything, right,
mm,
Sushant?
mm. Yeah, yeah.
So thank you, Sushant. This was a very intuitive and very interesting discussion. We will be back with another talk. And for all our listeners, thank you again for listening to our talks. You have shown us your love on all the podcasting platforms, on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. And we will be back with another such episode. Thank you.
So thank you. Bye bye.